Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another monthly digest. We have to have our coffee, of course. My notes down of everything that I digested in March. So, the first thing that we're going to talk about today are actually TV shows. I did not watch a lot of TV this month. I only watched 3 shows, and 2 out of the 3 came out in February, and the episodes are just kind of continuing on. And I did go ahead and rank all 3 TV shows. The first one that gets third place is Like Water for Chocolate. I talked about Like Water for Chocolate for my February Wrapped, but girl, the season finale came out I think last week or so, and it deserves third place because I did not particularly agree with a lot of how the season 2 was handled. Basically, after like maybe the third episode, I felt like things just kind of went like downhill a little bit. And I won't say any spoilers, but I felt like a lot of the character differences that they could have done, um, they just chose to ignore and they chose not to do. The end of the season, I think, really hurt from a fan's point of view because they gave some of the traits to some of the male characters that the female characters actually had in the original movie and the book. And so it's really hard to see that in like 2026 how some of the male characters just kind of took some of the attention away from the female characters because it's a very heavy female led story, and I think it deserves to be that if those were, the original intentions. And then some of the things that they added to kind of do a new spin on the new adaptation, I think they completely missed their mark. They added character deaths that weren't supposed to happen. They added like certain plot twists that just like were so out of touch, and I felt like they just wanted to surprise the viewer, and instead of surprising them in a positive way, they kind of just disappointed them, me being one of them. And so I didn't love it, and I felt like season 2 was a little bit slow as well with like the things that were going on, the things that they were showing. It was just kind of repetitive. I was kind of just ready for the season to be over. So that is why I unfortunately have to give it a 3 out of 5 stars. 2.5 out of 5 because season 1 was so good. To me, that was a 5 out of 5. So I feel like season 2 started off really strong. I really enjoyed it. But by the time that they got to like the second or third episode, they really did lose me. So that's just the reality. Now, season 2 of The Pit came out last month, I believe, and it also was included, I think, in my February Wrapped. Unfortunately, The Pit for this month gets a higher place because the episodes that have continued on to March have been entertaining, but I think I have genuinely enjoyed The Pit as a one episode a week girl. The Pit is just not a binging show. Like, I can't watch The Pit and watch like 6 episodes in one sitting. It gets too repetitive, it gets too boring, it gets really one dimensional. I get just like uninterested from the patients, I get uninterested from the characters, I get just bored. I'm on my phone, I'm like doing other stuff. I really don't care for what's going on. Like one of the characters could literally drop dead and I genuinely would not care. It wouldn't move me, it wouldn't make me cry, it wouldn't make me happy. I genuinely like if you enjoy watching The Pit as a binging show, to each their own, but it's just not for me. Something that I did different this time around with the episodes coming out weekly is that I genuinely watched one episode a week, I wait for the episode to air. I think they air on Thursdays, so sometimes I watch it on Thursdays, but honestly, sometimes and most of the times I wait until Friday. And that has made a world of a difference. I genuinely enjoy it so much more. I have an attention span when I'm watching the episodes and I actually care about what's going on. And yeah, I think just because it's such a much more realistic and less dramatic medical show, you just kind of have to have the interest to watch it. But it can be a little bit too underwhelming. So, I loved I love the pace of just one episode a week, and that's honestly why I've enjoyed it so much more. I think this season so far, because it hasn't ended. This season so far for March, I would give it probably a 3.5 stars because I feel like every big issue they try to play um in the episodes, they really undersell it and they kind of make it kind of like a passing through sort of issue, which in reality, which is their whole thing, is that it's realistic. These are actual medical people and employees, and it's not supposed to be like dramatized. I think that some of the issues last way longer than how they're playing it out to be, but we shall see, and I will wait until the season is over. But yeah, so the Pit ranks second place. Now we have first place. Now, I don't mean to be controversial to my two viewers, but I recently got Disney Plus again after not having it for a while. My mom really wanted to watch Zootopia, so we ended up getting it for her. And Disney Plus is just one of those streaming services, one of the only ones that continuously has shows dubbed in Spanish and dubbed in like 30 other languages, and you don't get that with like other networks, unfortunately. And so whenever we wanted to watch like stuff on HBO Max, none of their stuff, it's so rare that it'll actually be in Spanish. So because I had gotten Disney Plus, I was scrolling and a new TV show aired called Love Story, by I think it's by FX, but it streams also on Hulu, which Disney owns Hulu, so you can watch Hulu stuff on Disney Plus. And I started watching it. Keep in mind, I'm on the younger side, not super young, but I'm young enough. So I don't really know a lot of like 80s, 90s stuff that kind of comes out and stuff. So I was not familiar with who they were until teasers and like clips on TikTok were resurfacing of the show and like of their story of who these protagonists were, which is JFK Jr. and Carolyn Bassett. Um, I actually got intrigued by it, not because of the show, of like what the show was about, but actually because of Sarah Pigeon. I a very long time ago, literally like years ago, I watched a show on Amazon Prime back when I had money and had Amazon Prime. And it was a survival show of these girls on a plane and it crashes on an island and they have to survive. And it's a bunch of girls and the show was really, really good. It's called, I think, The Wilds. And I recognize her for it. She looked completely different, but I still like, you can just still remember like the structure of a face. And she's blonde now. And I was like, oh my God, is that who I think it is? And it was. So I loved her character in The Wilds. I love her. And so I was intrigued to watch it. And I watched it. Now, I learned so much about like the Kennedy family and all of that. Again, that's not my area of expertise. That's not like something that genuinely like I had looked into. And it's just like it's never been my interest. So a lot of this stuff was like new information for me, and I know that it raised a bit of like controversy because they're obviously tied, like he's literally like JFK's son. You know what I mean? So I understand the conversations that were going around it and how, they're actual people, but they're also a very publicized family and they have a lot of money and power, etc., all the stuff. And so when you're a public figure, all of these things, like, the public is going to make stuff like this and talk about you on social media and like make stuff, and right now I'm literally talking about them. So from a point of view of someone who's not familiar with literally anything of it and who only watched it because of TikTok and the fact that I recognize Sarah Pigeon, I genuinely enjoyed the show. Again, I watched them as the episodes were streaming weekly, and I think it's just one of those shows halfway of the season I could have binged that. The second half of the season, I was fine. One episode a week. It wasn't something bingeable for the later half because it slows down, it has a slower rhythm, all of that. But the first half, I definitely could have binged. I really admired the portrayal of these individuals. And again, I'm a big fan of Sarah Pigeon, and so I really liked her and the work that she did to like convey this. I think that the life in New York City in the 90s is also so interesting to see fashion and just like news outlets and the way that like the people at the time kind of moved around and getting to like learn about like Calvin Klein, which I'm not literally no idea about any of this. Not at all. Now, the last episode completely shattered me. I was genuinely in tears at the loss of these characters who are portraying real people. And it was really sad to see, and I can't even begin to imagine. And I think, as much as they could have done, I do think that they kept it pretty respectful for the end. They didn't show or try to reimagine the crash. They didn't try to like show like the graphicness of their death. They showed the impact that their death had on their loved ones, and I think that was like the right way to do it, and I did enjoy it. So Love Story for me was a 4 out of 5 stars, and it ranked 1, aka first place, out of the 3 shows that I watched this month. Okay, now the next movie that I watched, the next 2 movies that I rated 3 out of 5 stars for If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You and Sentimental Value. If you're noticing the pattern, it is because the Oscars came out and I wanted to see all the Oscar nominated films without having to pay to like watch them. So I looked up the films on all of the streaming services that I had, and those were the 2 that were on. I think Sentimental Value is on Disney Plus, and If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You was on HBO Max. If I Had Legs, I'd Kick You is told in a very interesting way. I think the director and the producer just like really knew the angle that they wanted to portray and how desperate and how overwhelming motherhood is. I don't know the actress's name, but I really do enjoy like the way that she portrays characters, and I really like her work. I think I also really enjoyed the coping mechanisms of being under the stress of motherhood. Something about that I felt connected to, even though I'm not a mother, but the way that she copes with like food and alcohol and like all these things that provide like this like very short term comfort, I really related to. So all in all, I ranked that movie a 3 out of 5 stars just because at the end, I think I'm always, to me, selling the ending is a hit or miss, and I think that's one of the things that I'm the pickiest about. So, 3 out of 5. The next movie that I watched was Sentimental Value. I honestly just watched that because of the actors on actors interview with Bill Skarsgård and his son. So they're hilarious, obviously. And I needed to see the movie after seeing how the little like scene, like the part where they're like having the conversation, and then he's like, "Are you you're playing an absent father and you're one in real life, and that was so funny to me. Now, the last movie that I think I might make its own YouTube video, so I won't say a lot about that, is called Project Hail Mary. It has replaced Maxine on my top 4 on Letterboxd because it's now my top 4 favorite films. I got gifted the book for my birthday slash Christmas. Finished it on the way to the movie theater, watched the movie. It was so incredible. And as someone who's not a STEM girly, I think something about the movie giving a visualization to so much of the science and math literally being written in the book. Genuinely, like everything was just clicking into place, and I enjoyed it so much. And it was just such a great experience. I think it's one of the greatest movies I've ever seen. I'm not even joking. I'm not kidding. I'm not exaggerating. Genuinely, it's so good. You just have to watch it. Um it gets a lot of like so much comparison with Interstellar, The Martian, like all these space movies. Just watch it. Like don't think it's going to be 1,000 hours long and it's not going to get your attention. Oh, it's going to get your attention. And I will make a separate video about this, so I won't even talk for too long. But I'm just gonna read the synopsis for y'all. Science teacher Ryland Grace wakes up on a spaceship with no recollection of who he is or how he got there. As his memory slowly returns, he soon discovers he must solve the riddle behind the mysterious substance that's causing the sun to die. As details of the mission unravel, he calls on his scientific training and sheer ingenuity, but he may or may not have to do it alone. Watch it. Okay, guys. So, this next theme is I took a little bit of a break, as you can tell. I feel a little bit less puffy. I have some tea. And the next topic that I'm going to talk about is hobbies. Now, I have been aspiring to get out of my comfort zone and really go towards things that I've never ever done before. Like, I create art all the time. Oh, like, I create art all the time. I draw, I make videos, I edit videos. I love watching like edits on TikTok. I make TikTok videos. So, all of that genre, I feel like I have down. However, when it comes to other hobbies that I have to initiate and I haven't in a while or at all, I kind of chicken out and I don't want to do it anymore and I'm scared and I'm intimidated, whatever. So this time I decided to go towards something that I had never done before, and that was to get involved and get my hands dirty and put myself out there and essentially get involved in a film or TV production in any way, shape, or form. Now, specifically, I thought of like attainable ways to do things, to do this in a way that would put myself out there and I could still essentially just do it as a hobby. And so that entails me essentially me for the first time. I so for the first time ever, I was in a film as a background actor. I know. 2026 is the years to do all the things that you're scared to do. And I was so curious as to how a set worked, how the cameras look, how lighting works, how sound works, how actors act, how like how people on set like behave, and the experience was kind of insane. I essentially submitted myself for an open casting for background actors for an independent film, and I didn't think I was going to get a call back to go in and potentially be a background actor. And I ended up getting told like 2 days before. I got an email saying like, hey, thank you for submitting as like an extra slash background actor. Like, will you be available? And so I obviously said yes. I This was not the first project that I submitted for. So because I had already been ghosted a couple times from films, commercials, like movies that were kind of playing in the area, I didn't really have high hopes for participating in anything just because, I literally have no experience. And the fact that I got an email back saying if I wanted to participate was so cool. And even that email, I was like, I'm basically like on my way to Hollywood, like hello. And so that I was so excited about. I got told the details. I got told like what I was expected to wear. I got told how much I was going to get paid. I got told like where to show up, when to show up, and then I got an email saying like the night before like we'll tell you like what the parking situation looks like what everything is going to look like so you know like where to go. And so it turns out to be a night shoot, which I had already known, and it was fine. It was a night shoot. I end up driving there myself. I park where they told me to park. I bring like 3 outfits just in case they didn't like mine. I show up. They sit us in like one of these like little houses. It's filled with background actors. Um, I think it's also a reminder like theater kids are theater kids, And so some of them were a little out there. I'm not gonna lie. They were a little confident. They were a little, like fun. And yeah, so they were there. And then I signed paperwork. I had to go through basically like an approval for my outfit with like the person head of like costumes and whatever. Then I got told to change to something more colorful, so I brought, thankfully, green cargo pants. So I wore those. And then we had to wait again for shooting to start for the scene, and it ended up being this outside patio bar looking. They gave us beer, like fake beer. It was so cool, and I got to see the actors act. I ended up getting feedback. I ended up getting like instructions on like what to do, how to like basically like new instructions, and every single time like they would do a take, the literal assistant would pull me and like ask me to do different things. And that is so insane to me. I've never experienced anything like it. It was so scary and so intimidating, but I can't wait to like see what the scene looks like. And I know it's just a background work, but just being able to like hear them say rolling, like check, sound check, like all these crazy things that you don't get to see in person. And being such a fan of like movies and shows, it was so much fun. And I can't wait to do it again. And I hope I get to do it again. And yeah, it was a great experience. And that was my hobby for the month. And I'm very, very happy with the hobby that I went out to do. Okay, so this category is songs. Now, I don't have a lot of variety. The only thing that I can say that I truly listen to, truly catching up to, truly just like really into was none other than the BTS comeback. Period. I rate the album. I listened to the album, watched the music video, kept up with like their promotions, seeing them put out songs after 4 years genuinely felt like a fever dream. um I personally enjoyed the album, genuinely appreciated the art and the effort that it took. And there's nothing more that I respect is that people that genuinely are involved in writing and producing their own music, and that they are the face and the backbone of them, their brand. And a lot of idols can't say that. And so I really respect and love what they put out. I think Um, I don't think it was their best album, but I do think it was a great album, and I think the songs were authentic to who they are as a band. A lot of people said that it sounded more like some of their solo work. All I have to say is that that's what happens when music is authentic to the people as artists, and then they write and produce their own music as soloists. And so, of course, the album that they're also working together might have elements from their solo work. That's all I have to say. My favorite songs were Body to Body, Hooligan, Fire, 2.0. I personally liked Into the Sun. I liked all of the songs there. Those are just the ones that were a bit more upbeat that like caught my attention for this month specifically. Yeah, and I listen to music mostly when I'm walking, and so I tend to prefer more upbeat songs. And so that's just usually been like the album that has been playing literally this entire time while I've been on my walks. I will say I'll rate the album probably around a 7 out of 10 out of as a whole. Um, but I would rate the songs much more differently than the way that I rate the actual album as a whole, because the album is much more of an average. So, just want to put that out there. That was the media in terms of songs that I consumed for this month. Literally did not listen to anything else. Didn't really care to listen to anything else. And that's definitely like what I made time for. And yeah, I could talk about that forever. That could be a whole other YouTube video. Anyways, hey you guys. Also this is raspberry and grassroots tea. Very refreshing. But anyways, so the next topic that I have for y'all is books. Books is truly the only media that's truly consistent across any month. And I have to say that in the month of March, I read 4 books. The first book that I read was actually through an audiobook, and I think I read that probably like in 2 days. And that was Beach Read by Emily Henry. Emily Henry, I've been trying to see if like her books are up to like my taste, and if it's something that I genuinely enjoy, or it's something that I kind of force because I want to like her books, because obviously her books are becoming movies and TV shows and all these things, and I love a good love story, and I love love. But I think I've come to the consensus that her writing style isn't really for me, and that it's just not my cup of tea. Hey. So, not to get too off topic. So, just had to say that before I talked about Beach Read. Beach Read is one of her most famous books that she has out, and she has lots of books out. Beach Read, I came to know a couple years back, and I'll let y'all know. I'll tell y'all later. But basically, I downloaded Libby. I downloaded the book and I listened to the book, and it had me like halfway. And then after halfway, I lost interest, and I lost the plot, and I lost what they were doing, and I got confused, and then I got uninterested, and it was so many things all at once. But basically, it follows a girly pop named January. Love the name. She is basically inheriting this beach house slash cabiny vibe from her father that has passed away. Obviously, she comes to the house to clean it and look at it, and she is planning on selling it and getting rid of it. Also, an author, if I haven't mentioned. So, she goes to this house and she realizes that he actually has an entire partner that January never knew about. She's dealing with grief and resentment all at once. She's feeling the feels, and she's feeling very upset because not only is she dealing with that, but to know that her mother was dealing with cancer, and she potentially in her head was imagining the loss of her mother, all while she ends up losing her father, is a lot. While she's in this remote little cutesy beach town, she comes across her old college classmate, Augustus. Now, he's mysterious. He's also a writer, which already had me a little iffy on that. And they basically just clash, clash, clash. But now that they are working adults, both writers, they kind of, have a little rendezvous moment going on. Now, Beach Read is becoming a movie with Phoebe, aka my queen, Daphne from Bridgerton, and the male lead is still has not been announced. We shall see. Beach Read was truly just not it for me. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Maybe I think it was maybe like a 2.5, 3 stars. And I think Beach Read is the last Emily Henry book that I will be reading. So sorry. Next book that I read was On the Way to the Wedding by Julia Quinn. On the Way to the Wedding is Gregory Bridgerton's book. So it is the second to the last book of the Bridgerton book series. The Wedding follows Gregory as an adult. He is a bit of a interesting man. He's who truly believes in love. He's watched all of his siblings find true love, and that is something that he says that he will not settle for. He's a little bit of a dreamboat. He's a little bit of a enthusiastic man who thinks of the world a little bit as rainbows and butterflies because his family is just, amazing. But let's just say that he has to learn what true love really means. I will say that I enjoyed Gregory's book. I want to do a tier ranking of all the Bridgerton books as like a separate YouTube video, but I have no idea like where Gregory stands with me and my preferences. I will say Gregory's is probably is it Gregory's book is so much fun. He as a character is so spontaneous and just out there that his book was genuinely felt like summer camp. It was so much fun. It was so entertaining. I personally love the female lead of the book. I love the twists and turns. I think Julia Quinn had to really get creative with 8 siblings, 8 different storylines, 8 different love interests. And I think her approach to Gregory really was truly so much fun. So that is all that I will say. I think for now, his is probably my favorite Bridgerton book, which is insane, but I had to say it. And I think it's true. I think for now, it is my favorite book. So that was the second book I finished in the month of March. Now, for the third book that I read, it was actually a mini little it was like a short story. It's Hot for Slayer by Ali Hazelwood. The name is a little silly, I know, but it's basically about a vampire hunter and a vampire. Um and it is in fact a little bit of an enemies to lovers situation. So vampires, enemies to lovers. That was basically all that I ever want when I read romance. And so I got that. I could read probably a whole book series over them. It was a short read. So I finished it, I think, in one sitting. It took me probably like an hour, maybe an hour and a half to finish it. And it was a fun read. And I highly recommend. Yeah, it was just so much fun. I rated it 4 or 3.5 out of 5 stars. Genuinely because it's fun. And with Ali Hazelwood, you get exactly what she's selling you. Like, she's not gonna say that it's the super deep, like, heartbreaking, like you're gonna be like punching a wall or something like that, she will write her books and she will say this is a lighthearted romance. This is just for fun. This is like for you to have a good time. She will write her books and she will have the synopsis of a book written exactly to let you know that's what you're gonna get if you get her book. And that's literally what is written. So I feel like she's just not a misleading author, and I genuinely just wanted something fun, lighthearted, short. That's what I got. So that's why I rated it 4 out of 5 stars. Guys, we have officially reached the last book that I read, and that is Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. I got this book for Christmas slash my birthday, and I obviously just watched the movie. The book, again, I think I'm gonna do a separate video for that, but the book exceeded my expectations. I came in very intimidated because I love romantasy, romance, high fantasy, realistic fiction, dystopian, YA. That's the genres that I read, okay? That's what I like. So when I was gifted this book, I was so scared that I was gonna be outdumbed by this book. And thankfully, I was able to comprehend what this book was about. It kept me entertained. The protagonist is so funny, genuinely so funny. Basically, Project Hail Mary is a book, now movie, starring Ryan Gosling, about a science teacher named Ryland Grace and his journey to figuring out how to save the sun. He ends up in space, and he may or may not have amnesia, so he doesn't even remember his name. And it follows that journey, and we'll see if he accomplishes it or not. And it was amazing. It was a 5 out of 5 stars. It so far is probably my favorite book that I've read in the year of 2026. And it's also the movie. But the movie adaptation has also exceeded my expectations, and it was so heartbreaking. And again, I feel like I could probably do a whole other video about this. So that was the last book that I read in the month of March. I literally finished it March 30th or March 29th. I finished it in like 2 days after struggling to like read the last to get past like the first 3 chapters just because I was getting distracted with other life stuff. But once I made that commitment, it was smooth. Okay, you guys. Thank y'all so much for watching and for sticking around. I had a pretty successful media March. Had a pretty successful media month. I enjoyed the films that I watched, the books that I read, BTS comeback, duh. I think it was pretty dry with shows being and being genuinely obsessed with shows. Um so yeah, I think that would really be my only con. I am super enthusiastic about what the month of April will bring in terms of new books that I'm gonna read. Spoiler alert, my Libby hold for Tower of Dawn actually like just got confirmed that I now have it. So that's going to be the first book that I read for the month of April. So I am excited. I hope you guys check out all of the movies that I mentioned, all of the books that I mentioned. Truly try out Project Hail Mary. Try to read the book before you watch the movie. I highly recommend it. And yeah, so have a great rest of your week slash weekend. And I will catch y'all next time. Bye.